Hey everyone, welcome back to the Joaquin Podcast. This is the third episode, and this time I did a podcast with none other than Jason Bassler and Matt from the original Police the Police social media giants. These guys have been around for a long time. Before I even thought about picking up a camera, I started watching their work on Facebook, Twitter. Man, these guys have had millions of followers. These guys operate a website called the Free Thought Project that I knew about that I didn't even know was operated by these guys, which is totally mind-blowing. Like I said, this is my third episode of Joaquin Podcast. I was actually asked to be on their podcast, which I did do, but they actually allowed me to record it as well, which I am bringing to you guys the gift of the podcast that I did with these guys, which to me, I'm totally blown away because these guys are heroes in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Here you go. I will not hold you guys any longer. This is the Free Thought Project, Police to Police, and San Joaquin collaboration. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys.
So welcome to the show, David, better known as San Joaquin Valley Transparency. We appreciate you joining us today. You and I have been talking for a couple months now, and I must say it's been awesome getting to know you. You're one of the biggest First Amendment auditors in the game. Your YouTube channel has about 200,000 subscribers, and you do a lot to help out the cop watching and 1A auditing community. Do you mind taking a moment to introduce yourself and maybe give those who don't know you a brief explanation about your work and what First Amendment auditing even is?
Sure. So my name is David. When I was thinking of a channel name, I was kind of thinking of the area that I live in, and I live in the San Joaquin Valley, so I wanted to throw that in there. Plus, I wanted to add something at the end that kind of said what I was going to do or what I was doing, and that was just bringing transparency to where I live. One of the questions that I get asked the most is, what got me into this? What started me getting recording police or whatnot? I seen a news segment come on the television, and it said that we live in the deadliest county for police justified killings. So I was watching cop watch videos around that time, and I was like, man, something needs to be done. You know, I probably should go out and record police myself and see if I can create some change. And I maybe had this crazy idea in my head that if I was always out there recording police when they least expected it, maybe I can somehow lower the numbers of police justified killings. And I knew that we wouldn't be able to tell right away. I knew that only in time we could look back and see if, you know, my work actually made any difference. When I got into it, I just seen how overwhelmed we are, by getting our rights violated. And it's not just in Kern County where I live. I seen that we're seeing videos everywhere. And so I just realized and understood that I had to get out and start recording as well.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, a lot of times people ask me the same thing, why I started Police the Police. And they always assume it's some kind of negative police encounter, that you had the shit kicked out of you or you're unfairly treated or something. While I understand that perspective, I think it's also important to remember that sometimes people just see an injustice and they want to get involved. They want to try to better their community, better their country. So yeah, it shouldn't be the first thought that people have, but I guess there's such admiration for police that a lot of times, people think that if you're not for police, if you're not pro police, then you must have had some type terrible experience, or either that or you're a criminal. We get that a lot too.
Right. It's kind of weird that police use propaganda slogans, and I even wonder if like the banners that they use, like Back the Blue and the Blue Line flags that they hang on inside the police stations, if that's paid for with tax dollars. I feel like if the police were always on the up and up, would they really need slogans to, remind people, that, they're heroes and first responders are heroes? I mean, we get it, we get the idea, but do we really need propaganda to make it look good? I mean, it feels to me like the news is complicit with bad behavior, because they don't really highlight, unless it's like it just shows like one certain thing they're trying to push an agenda. But in all reality, it seems like I don't know, something's really got to be done.
Sure.
Yeah, the best propaganda poster would be just police respecting rights and upholding the Constitution. You wouldn't need to do any of that, Instead of arresting these people for making videos and filming them, they should just respect their right to do it in public.
Right.
Yeah, there's a term for that. I think it's propaganda, instead of propaganda. But you touched on something there, and I think it is important to mention to both of our viewers, mainstream media generally only covers a lot of the bigger stories that happens within the police violence, police accountability world. A lot of times more local news is covered by, local channels and whatnot. A lot of times people think that they could trust those local channels, and I'm not going to say 100% of the time you can't, but there is incentive for those local channels to try to portray their local police in a certain light, because they have a partnership with their police. There is, it kind of goes both ways. So if they're getting leads from the police, or if they're getting some type of information from the police, they don't want to necessarily put them in a bad light, because it's less likely in the future they're going to get, that jump on a story or that quote on a specific incident or whatever. So that's something to also keep in mind. And it's also another reason why alternative media is so important. We say straight up that we do have a bias. Yeah, like we do have a bias. A lot of news agencies try to tell you that they're, strictly objective, but no, like the Free Thought Project, Police to Police, like we're clearly for freedom, we're clearly for peace, and we're clearly for accountability, and those aren't three things that you're going to hear from local or mainstream media news. But, again, you can't always trust exactly what these guys are saying, because they have incentive to try to portray police in a certain light.
You're so right about
that. We've actually covered several stories where the not the local police department, the local news has been cut off from information. So the police no longer inform them as to like traffic accidents or murder scenes or anything like that. So they can, show up and report those, because they've actually shown police in a negative light. So they cut them off. They no longer give them this privilege of inside tips and withhold information from them. I'm actually, there's a perfect example of that. I'm covering this story for the weekend. This kid named John Albers. He was a 17-year-old kid who was gunned down in his driveway by a cop who eventually walked, didn't get any, no accountability whatsoever. In fact, he got like a $70,000 bonus a month later after he killed this kid. And the kid was unarmed, and the cop was there for a welfare check. And when he was backing out of the driveway, the cop feared for his life and put 13 bullets in him. But so the Kansas City Star and another local media outlet, KHUB or something, they hold the police accountable. They actually, report and show the negative aspects as well as the positive ones too. But because they've shown like so many negative ones, the police have failed to give any records to the press on why the cop who killed Albers was cleared. And this is in spite of the mayor saying, back in 2018 when it happened, that they were going to release all these records once the investigation was complete. And they have yet to do that. And the Kansas City Star and this other local news affiliate have both sued the police department there, because they've refused to release it. And they've also filed the Freedom of Information Act requests, and they've all been denied. And it's because they have this bad relationship. They're showing police, they're holding police accountable, so they don't get this this quid pro quo that that other pro police local media outlets get. Which is also, that's another reason I want to bring up. I was thinking about is the every time someone's killed by police, they go through the rap sheet of this person's prior criminal record, and they just drag their reputation through the mud. And this is like something that every single local media outlet does. Like that has anything to do with justifying the fact that they were killed or beaten. Oh, this guy had 3 arrests for marijuana in the past, so we should probably look the other way now that the police killed him, even though he was unarmed, and presenting no threat whatsoever. So yeah, it's a crazy relationship that the police have with the media, and yeah, we've never talked about that really on a podcast. I'm glad that got brought up.
It also seems to me like they sweep under the rug stories that mean something, that if you really dig into it, you're going to find something. And one of those stories to me, for me, is Elijah McClain's story, how he was uh, held down, choked out, and then they injected him with ketamine. Why is that story not out there as much as any other story? And I feel like that's the reason why, because you're going to get into the topic of that. And it just seems like that's been swept under the rug. I've made several videos on that. They get shadow banned. The monetization turns yellow. It just doesn't go anywhere. And it seems like, I don't know, who's monitoring these stories, and it's in the news, and it seems like it's on social media as well. I mean, just that story won't go anywhere, and I've tried my best to talk about it and explain what happened there, and it goes nowhere. Same thing with qualified immunity when I spoke about that over 2 years ago.
Man, in Aurora, that situation with Elijah McClain is particularly egregious because the cops that held him down. He was innocent. For those who aren't familiar with the story, this was an innocent kid walking home from getting some groceries, and he was an introvert, so he liked to wear a mask as not to interact with the public. And he was detained unlawfully, thrown to the ground, held down, choked out, and then forcibly injected with ketamine, a sedative that makes a lot of people hallucinate. And then he died shortly after that. And the cops that did it, they all walked. They ruled the death justified. And then like 3 months later, some other cops with the department went back to the same scene where Elijah McClain was killed, and then reenacted his murder and laughed about it and took pictures of themselves like choking each other out. And those cops got like a couple of days suspension or something for that, only because it became public. Had it never become public, nothing would have ever happened. But none of those cops have faced accountability, and the only people that actually are facing accountability for it are the people that protested it. And some of the protesters are facing up to like 6 decades behind bars because they chose to protest, Elijah McClain's death, and the fact that the cops who killed him weren't held accountable. They're charging these, like, it's a little white girl and a little white dude they're charging them with like 8 counts of kidnapping or 18 counts of kidnapping police, because they were part of a protest or helped organize a protest that actually surrounded the Aurora Police Department precinct where the cops were that killed Elijah McClain. So the cops said that they were scared and couldn't leave because there was a protest outside. So therefore they were kidnapped, and the people that organized the protest were the kidnappers. And I mean, that's how deep this crazy shit goes, that these people are now facing, they're facing the possibility the rest of their lives behind bars because they protested a police killing, and then the police can be able to spin the legalese into this to make it as they were kidnapped. I mean, come on, man. It's laughable, but it's serious.
That's exactly why we created that Facebook page several years ago, Cop Logic, just trying to highlight all the ridiculous logic that these officers come up with whenever they're either giving their narrative or filling out their reports. It's just a bunch of nonsensical cop-splaining. And I'm right there with you guys. The Elijah McClain story, it should have been just as big, if not more viral and more protests than the George Floyd killing. It was kind of interesting when the George Floyd incident happened. We've covered several stories over that over the years, of cops kneeling on somebody, or 5 or 6 cops putting all of their weight on an individual, and they perish. They'll actually die in that position. And it seemed like it was a bad video, don't get me wrong. It just didn't seem like it was totally outside of the normal as far as creating this huge uproar and huge backlash against the police. So when it happened, me and Matt and a couple people on our team were like, this is obviously a horrible situation that happened, but like, why is this specific one going so crazy? Like, why are people so, like, it wasn't like George Floyd was this well-known person, nonetheless, any loss of life is always tragic, but some of these stories are worse than others, you know, and Elijah McClain's is certainly one of them. You know, I was, we could certainly talk about police accountability stuff, but I was kind of hoping we could shoot a little bit more towards the auditing side of things, just because I feel like that is such a powerful tool at our disposal, you know, and I would love to talk a little bit more about that as well, if you guys are okay with that. Yeah. One of the things I was going to ask you though is there's certain like expressions that auditors use. Like if you've watched a handful of you know, auditing videos, First Amendment auditing videos on YouTube, you hear such expressions like you're dismissed, or tell that to the judge, or I think one of your favorites is, you know, kick rocks. It seems like these phrases have gone like viral amongst the auditing community. Do you know like where these have stemmed from? I'm sure you've created a couple of them, and like people have caught on.
Put that in the title of your video and watch it go viral.
Right.
So yeah, there's definitely catchphrases. When I first became an auditor, and I met a woman named Susan Bassi in Sacramento, and she, at a courthouse, she had been arrested for recording inside the courthouse. Her finger was broken, and when we were in there, she was totally blown away because we all had cameras, and she was like, I was arrested for the same thing you guys are doing. And I told her, we're auditors. And she said, who are you? And I said, San Joaquin Valley Transparency. And she's like, I know your channel. And I was like, oh man, that's cool, right? Can't wait to put that on my channel, right? But I talked this woman into creating a channel of her own, and I helped her get her channel grow a little bit. But one of the things she taught me was, you know, you guys need to stop calling yourselves cop watchers. You guys need to stop calling yourselves auditors. Call yourself a journalist, because there are actual laws that protect you as a journalist. So I started to understand these things little by little later on. But this whole cop watching genre thing, to me, it was like amazing. Like I started watching a channel called Joe Citizen Ho, and he totally blew my mind, because I didn't know you can talk to police like that, let alone record them in public, right? And so when I'm watching this guy do his work, I watched his videos probably like 20, 30 times each one. I was totally like, I was invested in it. And so like I said later on, I started auditing and cop watching. The auditing term kind of took off on its own. First Amendment audits, it kind of took off on its own. When I came on scene, there was only probably a handful of auditors out there. I don't really want to talk down on them, but it seemed like these guys were like doing their own thing. It seemed like they were trying to corner the market, maybe discourage folks, and I can hear, you know, what they were saying. And it just seemed like very discouraging. So when I came on scene, I started to kind of say things like, come on, you guys, pick up a camera, record. You know, you guys don't have to donate to me. Pick up a camera, record, and hold your own officials accountable. And little by little, channels started picking up. This one channel, Wolfie Gladly, went out and did an audit, and more channels started picking up and doing it. And then I started sharing their videos and helping their numbers grow. And the next thing you know, this whole First Amendment auditing thing just started taking off. But I don't want to take credit for that. I think it was already taking off before I came on scene. And there was channels that were coming on like I feel like First Amendment audits kind of got a bad reputation, almost from the very beginning, just because the biggest channel when I came on scene he had like 24,000 subscribers, and that was like big, right? But this guy wasn't a great guy, man. And there was other people that came on scene, and I'll give you an example. There was an auditor that was, this particular auditor was transgender, but the auditor was, the camera was facing the serviceman's crotch area, and the auditor says, and this is kind of gross, but the auditor says, I can't wait to look at this later. I'm going to take it home and go beat off to this. And I was watching this, and I was like, whoa, dude. I was like, no way. So I left the comment. I was like, perversion is not why we do this, right? And next thing you know, I get attacked from their channels people, and they're like, oh man, this is... So I kind of knew that First Amendment auditing wasn't gonna get picked up in a good way. I knew that when local media, local news stations, mainstream even, if anybody picked it up, they're just gonna highlight the bad that we do. And especially if there's an agenda out there to take our right to record away, the bad that we do is going to benefit that idea, to let's stop these people from recording. And I got to be honest, Jason and Matt, I made mistakes along the way. I feel like I was a little chihuahua cornered in the cornered and just getting ready to bite. I was afraid of cops, man, my whole life. Maybe it was because weed was illegal for so many years, and it carried a bad stigma, and I always had a little bit of weed in my pocket, and I was like, just walk a straight line, look straight, never, But now weed's legal. But I see cops now, right? And not only do I have my camera ready to go, like if I see cops, I'm no longer scared, man. I'm trying to flip it and trying to get a cop watch in, and it's a whole different feeling. It's empowering. I know I've kind of went off a lot on saying a lot of stuff, but First Amendment audits, I feel, has had a bad stigma. The ACLU, from my understanding, wants nothing to do with auditors. Mainstream media wants nothing to do with auditors. Local news won't pick up our arrests. And when they do, they still try to make us look bad. I mean,
yeah. I was really late to the game with auditing. In fact, that was one of the questions I had for you. Is like, when did all this start? But I've been in the cop watch, cop block community, since like 2011, 2012. So as Matt, maybe even before that. So I was really excited to hear about this whole community. And at that point, it was already thriving. There was already a lot of channels out there. And to me, it's some of like the bravest work that you could do. It's one thing to listen to like a police radar or a scanner, and maybe try to show up at the scene of like a traffic stop or something and try to film them at that point. But it's a whole other ball game when you're actually going to these government buildings and putting cameras out there. And sometimes you're in, not necessarily, I don't want to say in people's faces, but you're in publicly accessible areas doing a First Amendment protected activity. So technically, legally, you're not doing anything wrong, but still, these cops and sometimes even employees at these public institutions, they get triggered, and they see a camera and they don't understand or know what the First Amendment applies to. So they think that you're doing something wrong. So a lot of times when we share these types of videos on our channel, people who are unfamiliar with auditing, they'll sometimes claim that the auditor is just trying to provoke police into some type of negative encounter or try to like make them say or do something that they're not supposed to. Like what kind of response do you have for those types of people when they say that?
When I'm out there auditing myself personally, let me speak for myself. We can do two things when it comes to the common person. Like there's a common person that'll be out there and they'll have a face like, what are you doing, man? Why are you recording me? And then you can either be like some of the guys that are out there, right, that really like the confrontation. They'll be like, what do you care? And this is just the common person. And I always say this, man, look, I'm not a politician, but I want to win over the votes, at least for the First Amendment, at least for the Bill of Rights that was actually written to limit the scope of authority of these public officials over the people. So that's kind of my whole take on it. When it's a common person, just like an example on one of my videos, she turned around and she was like, oh, like gave me like a really funny face, and she was asking me what I'm doing, and I told her, oh man, we're just here to record public officials on the course of their duty to make sure that they're doing their job for you correctly. You can also pick up your camera and record. And that lady's face went from like bugged out to like, thank you. And I was like, you're welcome. Whereas certain channels go and they would say like, what do you care? It's my right to record, right, and leave me alone, and just, you're stupid, lady. And it's like, oh man, where are we gonna go from here, dude? Like, of course we're getting a bad name because, and who am I to tell this guy, hey, don't say that, man. It's my First Amendment right. You know what I mean? So how do we want to do this, man? How do we want to approach this? I feel like we can try to do as much as we can. And me personally, man, I try to lead by example, I guess. That makes sense.
Well, if I could jump in here for a second again, I don't want to dominate the conversation too much. I know Matt probably has something to say as well. But unfortunately, I think there is a reason why the mainstream and the ACLU don't want anything to do with auditing. And you're exactly right, because there is an incentive for these channels, for these auditors to be confrontational. Because look, you get that quick clip that you could put in the very beginning of your video, which is going to draw in more views. So, and there's a lot of people who are making money from doing auditing, and that's a whole business and lifestyle in itself. It kind of reminds me of Tom Zebra. He would be cop watching, and he lived off of several lawsuits that he ended up getting $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 from. So I mean, there is money to be made doing this, and unfortunately, it does kind of incentivize that negative behavior where, that confrontation could easily spark up a viral video really quickly. But at the same time, it kind of makes all auditors look bad. It kind of makes all auditors look like they're a bunch of dickheads who are just confrontational idiots, and I feel like this is so much more important than that. But there is that monetization factor.
It's hard to get away from that monetization factor. I think for me personally, I realized and understood, I wasn't dead broke when I came into this. So obviously this wasn't going to completely change my way of thinking. I knew I had to stay the course. And I will say that there are very good channels out there right now that try to do this respectfully. We all have our bad days, but when you're out there and you're in the face of public officials who sometimes are worse than we are, and I tell you what, sometimes the worst ones are the ones that smirk at you. They know they're violating your rights. And they're threatening you in a calm manner and demeanor. And if you don't back up, we're going to arrest you. Give up your name and your ID. And when it comes to auditing, look, we got a bad reputation because of the mistakes that we have made, but we have also created change. And another thing that I learned from Susan Bassey, and this is one of the things that I feel I help channels for a reason. Like with me, when it comes to politics, I don't care if you lean towards the left or you lean towards the right. I want to try to straighten people up and push them forward and say, hey, man, this is where we need to be. We need to start holding these officials accountable. If it doesn't matter who's in power, if we can control their strong arm, which is controlling us, the power goes back to the people. So, I do a lot of talking behind the scenes with channels. I try to help them out with their editing skills. I try to help their voice grow. Like I said, I feel like some of the channels before me were pushing a lot of propaganda for us as well. And, there's things that I probably shouldn't even talk about, but there was people that also were wanting for us to get arrested so that we can hire them as an attorney. And they were like snitching on auditors and stuff. So there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes. I don't care too much to elaborate on that because I do see that we are making change. One of the things that I learned from Susan Bassey is we have the court of public opinion on our side. There's a channel called Press On who doesn't really consider himself an auditor or cop watcher, but he has one of the best channels out there. As a matter of fact, man, this guy don't monetize. He doesn't put a donation link. I'm trying to get this guy a brand new iPhone and take it to him, dude. I said, how can I send it to you or send you donations? He's like, find me and put it in my hand. But the things that this guy says, it'll totally blow your mind. And these are things that people are bringing to the table that we can all pick from and learn from. And we should be discarding what doesn't work in the trash that makes us look bad and keeping what makes us look good and what will bring the smarter people behind us. Because I always say this, Jason. I know you tell me don't say that, but I always say, I feel like I'm not that smart anyways, man. I just want to stick my foot in the door and let the smart people come in behind me because they're the ones that are going to change things. They're the ones that are going to bring that verbiage, that knowledge that's going to make everybody understand. We need to stop speaking like we do in the streets and start speaking from the law books the way they speak in the courtrooms when we're talking about law. That's how we get confused. That's why these officers who are undertrained, they're very young. They're hired before they can have any kind of life skill. And you have these officers basically babysitting America with absolutely no knowledge of law. When something happens, we got to hire an attorney that is very expensive. And their attorney, when they make mistakes, is still paid for by the taxpayer.
So it's just a lot that goes into, this whole thing. And I didn't understand everything. Like, I still don't understand everything, right? But as far as like police accountability, I what I understood when I first began was a small fraction. I was in its infancy of understanding of all of this, and now it seems like we are teaching people. It seems like this is taking off, and no matter the mistakes that we have made in the past, we have amazing channels that are educating people. News Now South Carolina, we have Amagansett Press, Rights Crispy, Wolfie Gladly, and a lot of different channels that are very good in what they do. Bay Area Transparency is another good channel. He has certain different approach. Everybody has their own approach and everything they're bringing to the table. And look, man, what we can pick at people and say, I don't like this about that person. But what about the knowledge? What about the value, the educational value that he's bringing to the table? That's why audits picked up and took off, man.
Yeah, I could very much vouch for David. Since the beginning of our communications, he's been trying to help however he can. He's been trying to get us to create a YouTube channel so he could help push it. And he's offered endless amounts of knowledge. And I appreciate it, man. I wish there was more people like you, not just in the 1A auditing community, but just all activists, because you're right. It unfortunately turns into a competition a lot of times. And, I'm more into the co-opetition, where sure, we could still compete, but let's also help each other. Let's network. Let's find mutually beneficial ways to help ourselves grow and get our work and our names out there even more. Yeah, man. So yeah, you touched on something there, and it was, modern day law enforcement, unfortunately, it seems like there's a profound lack of knowledge of the law. It feels like almost every time I watch an auditing video, or even just a straight up cop watching video, whether it be at a protest or whatever, cops don't know the law. They don't know a lot of the codes, the penal codes that they're enforcing. A lot of times they're just enforcing their ego. In fact, I want to touch on that here in a few minutes about one of your most viral videos. But what does it say about cops in America when activists know the law better than they do? And how do you think we could change that, besides, unfortunately, trying to embarrass them by putting them on YouTube and, highlighting the fact that they're so ignorant to the law? I mean, it's an effective approach, but it seems like it's also a very slow moving approach. It can only really affect one officer at a time.
It makes me wonder if this was all created by design, or if this was just an accident that humans stumbled upon, giving them full power, full control over the people with absolutely no education, no life skills, no knowledge of the law or the Constitution. Countless videos we have asked them to repeat their oath, and it's very simple, and they don't repeat their oath, and mostly it's because the oath stipulates that they are sworn under the Constitution to protect the rights of the people, right? But that's why they don't. So is it by design? At this point, man, it doesn't even matter. I was watching a channel called Jersey Watcher. And one of the things we've, as auditors and cop watchers, been advocating for so long is the blue line flag, and how it's a desecration of the American flag, and how veterans comment on our channels all the time and say, man, that's a slap in the face to my brother who died out there, right? Or whatnot. And so we've talked to cops. Me personally, I've been like, hey man, why do you wear that blue line flag? But in a video Jersey Watcher did, he got the officer to take down the police station to take down the flag. And man, I'm not gonna lie, that felt so good. And I'm editing the video, but then I realized something, and I says, wow, man, we've been duped. We got duped again, because here we are sitting here fighting for the desecration of a flag to bring it back to where it should be, right? The red, white, and blue. But now we got this station that took it down. But what did we win? The policies are still the same. Nothing's gonna change. we didn't win. We got duped into fighting for something that in reality, when you finally get it, what do you win? So yeah, it makes me understand and question things. When it comes to auditing and cop watching, I feel like one of the very first viral videos of police brutality was, if not the first viral, was Rodney King, right? So we have someone that recorded that. And then we have these checkpoints, refusals. And then you have people getting pissed off. I stumbled into Russia? They're recording police and they're asking questions. People getting pissed off and demanding their rights, right? And then you have the police arresting some of those checkpoint refusal guys and taking away their cameras or whatnot. But then technology, we got empowered with recording. So then people started live streaming, buying smaller cameras and hiding them or whatnot. So we begin to see this clearer, what's going on, a clearer picture. And then we have, fast forward, we have what I like to call is level 2. First we have the Rodney King and the checkpoint refusals, and then you have cop watching. To me, all that seems like level 1. Level 2 seemed to be going into these places and asking questions. We didn't know we had the right to go into these public buildings and ask questions. And one of the questions that we ask and makes everybody run and scatter is, where's our tax dollars? How are you spending our money? And these people like to call the police on auditors, right? And they like to say they're disturbing the peace. When cops come, they're like bullying around. Well, you raised your voice, you're disturbing the peace. She said you're disturbing the peace, so you're disturbing the peace. It's all right here on video. And so what happened years before when people went into these installations, these government installations, right, asking questions, when they're not recording. When the person gets pissed off and says, I don't like the way they're talking to me, can call the police and get them out of here. Disturbing the peace. You can't prove it that you weren't. And so that to me seems level 2 seems to be like auditing, because here we are, people now understanding that we can actually go in there and ask these important questions, and they need to be answered. Then we have, which I consider level 3, and auditors, we're not there yet, bro. There's one guy, Jersey Watcher, that I just mentioned, and clearly he's not the first guy to do this, but to me, he's one of the first guys to master the art of this. But he goes into council meetings and he's sitting there and he's holding them accountable. There was one video that I truly loved, man. And let me tell you a little bit about this guy. He'll go to a BLM gathering and he'll wear his red hat, his Make America Great Again hat. But he'll also go to a Back the Blue, Make America Great Again gathering wearing his BLM stuff. This guy is like a super troll. He wants to piss people off. And to me, I feel like our feelings, they need to be touched, bro. Our feelings need to be told, hey, I don't like you or something, because that's their freedom. And so when Jersey Watcher goes into these places, he demands answers. And it's crazy because they try to tell him, you can't say this, you can't say that. And he'll straight talk to the city attorney. City attorney, you can't stop me. They can't stop me. You better talk to him. And the city attorney will look over there and tell him, he has the right. You can't stop him. Start his time over. Pause the time. Hey, he's interrupting me. You better pause the time. And it's amazing to see this kind of work. I believe we need to progress as auditors. And look, man, Bay Area Transparency calls me the other day. He's like, damn, bro. He's like, now I know why you share videos and do other stuff for YouTube. The algorithm, mine's like, I just went out auditing all day for a whole week and I didn't get no audits. They were all boring. I think that they're starting to call each other and tell each other not to talk to me. And I said, bro, welcome to my world. I said, Bakersfield, California, right here. They sent out a notice and an email to and I know this because I got friends and their wives that work in these places, right? And so they said that they got the email and talking about my channel specifically, not to address me in any way, because then I'll make them famous on YouTube. And not only that, but the city attorney also wrote up a piece of paper for the police to read to me when I'm out there, talking about it. time and manner, and you got to step back. And I'm like, Now I understand things like Glick versus Kniff, and in that case, he was 10 feet away, and they cannot say that you're simply from just standing there recording that you're interfering. Unless. And one of the things I say to all cop watchers is this, man: don't address the cops until they address you first, and then you can ask for the name and badge number. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the most important, powerful things that we could do right off the bat is anytime you're starting an interaction with a police officer, you ask them what their name, badge number is, ask for 3 forms of identification, and put them in a position where they're answering your questions. And that immediately lets them know that, hey, this person isn't just the average Joe off the street who doesn't know their rights. Like, this person is trying to hold me accountable already. And of course, when you're asking those things, you should probably already have your camera out. Certainly important. Always document. But
yeah.
Yeah.
The cops getting a memo for you on how to handle you and not engage with you, man, to me, that's a victory. You know, like the thing that makes these audit videos so viral is because the cops are ignorant to the law. Well, I mean, now that they're not harassing you for filming, you know, in these locations, that means they're getting the law and it's working. I mean, there's like a few videos on the website that we've covered over the years of cops that are actually approach an auditor or someone filming like a government building or from a public sidewalk in front of any other number of buildings that cops like to harass people for filming in front of. And they've actually, you know, gotten out and upheld their constitutional right. They're like, hey, you know, I like what you're doing out here. You know, you're not breaking any laws. Just don't trespass and, you know, have a great day. And I mean, that's those guys have watched the YouTube videos. And they have, you know, they've researched the Constitution and researched the case laws, of which there are many stacked up for years of guaranteeing, you know, the citizen's right to film in public. And that's, I didn't know that was the thing, man. I know that's not good as far as like trying to generate revenue by auditing, but that's not the main goal, right? The main goal is to actually educate and create a more freer society. And I think that that's actually doing it. You know, like when cops aren't engaging, that's a win. That's a huge win.
Right.
I mean, we've seen several instances, you know, that where people were just filming and they've gotten, you know, guns pulled on them, or they've gotten, you know, even like women, like just harmless women, just frail, like holding up a camera, getting, you know, brutalized by cops for doing nothing other than filming. And the taxpayers are ultimately held responsible for that in the form of lawsuits. You know, millions and millions of dollars of lawsuits have paid out for people who have been attacked and kidnapped and caged for doing nothing other than filming. And the fact that they have a memo just for you, dude, is huge, man. It's just a testament to what you've been doing over the years. And I gotta say, that's pretty badass. I'm excited. I didn't know that, and I'm glad to hear that. That's crazy.
I tend to not take that as a win, because I would rather them tell the officers, like, look, man, go home and read it and you understand it. Don't read it to him because he already knows. Go home and educate yourself and read this so that when he's out there, you know, and look, man, there's a sidewalk, okay? And most traffic stops happen on the side of the sidewalk. They cannot impede your flow of travel. So if you're walking on the sidewalk and you get a little bit too close, it's not your bad, dude. It's you're not there to do anything wrong, nefarious reasons. You're just there to document and record. I've heard police tell us that we can't walk on the sidewalk, and that's not true. That's not necessarily true. And it also makes for a good cop watch, because if a cop comes out and says, stand over here, stand over there, look, man, in reality, I feel like because of Glick versus Kniff, the cop can only basically tell you 10 feet, and that's it. At this point, like, and I've heard people say, and even myself, I've said this as well, that it's not established in the Supreme Court that 10 foot is established. They left that open to interpretation by saying in a timely place and manner, which basically lets the cop want to say, okay, well, you know, it's not a timely place and manner right here. Go 20 feet, go across the street. They try to abuse that, but in reality, who can say that is a timely place and manner? You, in reality, because you're the one that's ultimately responsible for your own safety. Uh, Castle Rock versus Gonzalez proves that. So officers that come up to us and tell us you got to move back, yada yada. Hey man, Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, bro. Like, you're not responsible for my safety, so save that shit for somebody who doesn't understand, what it's all about. And look, most of us don't understand. That's why they get away with this, pushing us back. And
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you touched on that, man. I actually just made a meme similar to some of these, interchangeable default excuses that cops use, to try to intimidate auditors or cop watchers. I feel like there's 5 of them, right? There's these 5 phrases that they use over and over again. I mean, the first one, and I'm sure you've heard of it, I think I've even seen it on your video. Well, in this day and age, after 9/11, we have terrorists, so you have to ID yourself, David. There's that one, of course, the whole interfering with our investigation, which you touched on. And of course, that's subjective as well. Until they put up the police tape, there really isn't a defined area, where you can't stand. I mean, I recommend always give the police a little bit of space because, yeah, they'll use that as an excuse to literally physically assault you. The other 3 are, of course, I feared for my life. That's just the standard default for any type of, police violence. And then obstructing justice, they throw that one around all the time. I mean, that can't really be defined either. It's just whatever, they feel like it applies to in that moment. And then the last one, of course, is resisting arrest. And, if you do anything to even slightly pull your hand away from being pinned behind your back, like you had done to you in one of your videos, it could easily be pinned on you as like a resisting arrest charge. And these people, unfortunately, it feels like they don't acknowledge the fact that we're their bosses. Like, we literally pay their salary, and I understand that dynamic is a bit confusing and convoluted, because yes, these people have like authority with law enforcement, but ultimately at the end of the day, like, I've never been able to treat my boss, in the same manner that these people talk to, accountability activists. And one of my favorites was actually one of the videos that I think you did with in Martinez, California. I think it has about like 1.5 million views. I think you uploaded in like August. And basically, like, the officer rolls up to the scene and he immediately starts barking orders at you, to both of you guys. Some shit like, you can't multitask or something like that. And you like immediately flipped the script on him and started asking him questions like, hey, are you doing anything you're not supposed to do? Or keep your hands where you could see them, And he did not like that at all, man. And it's like, well, like, what do you expect? Like, we're your boss. Like, we're the people who employ you, yet you come out here and you talk to us like we're some peon, And so, yeah, man, not really a question there, but that's one of my favorite videos. I guess, like, where does that mentality start from? Like, is it just police culture in general?
Man, when I did my very first audit by myself, the police were called on me, and it was here in Bakersfield. I was doing the post office. And this is one of the things, man, I think we used to kind of recommend, if you're afraid, go to a post office and record. The cops will come and you're not doing anything illegal and they'll leave you alone, right? So I was like, I can do this. So I went out and recorded. The cops were called on me. Sure enough, man, put that on the ground. Put your camera on the ground. Can I have you sit on the ground? Mind if I pat you down? Both cops were coming around me, and I was just like, I was scared. I was so scared. But I went back to the videos I was watching, and I knew what to say, and I said it, and I ended up walking away. One of the things I would have done on that video is when police officers tell you, or when you ask a police officer, am I free to go? A police officer's like, yeah, you're free to go. I should have said, well, then I'm free to stay. But I was just so happy to be let go from being detained. I was like, see ya. I was happy, right. But it's a scary feeling, man. But let me just say this, okay? I recommend everyone give it a shot, even if it's from a distance. Even if you're in your car, if you're at a gas station, or if you see a traffic stop, start practicing now. Even if you're on the freeway and you see a traffic stop, practice pulling out your phone and pressing record, unlocking your phone, whatever it is you got to do, and practice. Try to get it. I have hundreds of videos of me just passing by cops on the freeway. Why? I don't know. Wasted space maybe, or what if the cop pulls out, or what? Maybe, you know what? It's not even always the cop. What if the person actually injures the cop, and then tries to say the cop did this? My videos could ultimately help the officer, not just the person. So one of the things to answer one of your questions that you asked me before, I know I went off on a tangent, but for the people that look at us in a bad light or whatnot, that's one of the reasons why I put transparency in my channel name. One of the things that we know is you got channels like Mike the Cop. You got other different channels where these guys have millions of followers, man. So they got a ton of support. So I knew that I didn't want to be considered to be on the other side. Like, oh, these are the guys that love cops and these are the guys that hate cops. I didn't want to be that. So I figured I was going to show the good and the bad, right? Obviously, for the work that we do, and I'm not going to lie, man, when we have videos where cops actually help people, they get a lot of praise on my channel. So, I tried to make sure that I was going to go down that route instead of going down as a police hater or whatever. First and foremost, man, I have lifelong criminals in my family, and I also have law enforcement in my family. So I try to look at this down the middle and try to find some kind of resolution to what's going on.
Totally, man. That's definitely important. We try to also highlight the good officers who are doing positive actions. Now, does that mean they're not complicit in an institution that's ultimately funded by stolen money to initiate violence on peaceful people? No. But by highlighting these positive acts, at least we're putting the positive out there. So maybe another cop happens to see that, and hey, look, there's a few comments here from the general public saying, like, I respect this cop, like, these are the types of cops I want. Maybe it just happens to plant a seed in his head. Maybe the next encounter he has with a civilian, he'll actually be cordial and remind himself, why he took the oath. So it is important. It's absolutely important to highlight the good stories as well. It doesn't mean that we are, pro law enforcement. It doesn't mean that, we think that there is some salvage in the institution. I personally don't. I don't think it could be reformed, but it's not going to be reformed or abolished overnight. So we might as well, highlight some of these stories. And the other thing you touched on too is really important, is that yes, the camera is the great equalizer. It's accountability and transparency for both parties. And I think that's something also that we always need to vocalize when we are filming police, because it's not just for us and our protection, it's for their protection too.
Absolutely. And, to make it fair, all police officers, the ones that are watching and listening to me, understand that on camera, I too can make a mistake and do something illegal and be charged for it. I did a video where I went up to this, I guess it was like an ICE facility. Didn't have any markings, but we knew it was a government agency. I didn't even know what it was, actually. I just went over there just to go record, like all auditors do. We go to any installation that's paid with tax dollars, right? There's an artist named Trevor Wesley who made a song for me, and he put all my, from that Martinez video, he put a lot of my words in the video, and it's freaking hilarious, man. He made music out of it.
That's great.
But I went to and he's the one that made that song "Chivalry Is Dead." I don't know if you ever heard it. It's pretty good. It went viral. But this guy, I went to this area, and this officer, I guess he was an ICE agent. I didn't know at the time, but he was wearing a blue line flag hat, and he was sitting in his little Prius. And I walked up to him, and I was like, "You work here?" And he was like, "No," which he was lying. And I was like, "Are you sure?" He was like, "Yeah, I don't work here." And sure enough, the other guy I was with says, "You support that blue line flag?" And he says, "Yeah, why? I'm American." And then he just looks at us. He's like, "Get a life." And I'm not going to lie, man, this is not one of my better videos, and I'm not too proud of that video. But I was like, F you, you get a life. And I just kind of cussed him out, right? I'm not going to lie. That's one of the videos that I'm embarrassed of doing, I should not have stooped down to his level. But he was being a douchebag, and so was I. And you know, one of the comments that we get is, "Oh, you guys are so unprofessional, yada yada." And I'm like, wait a minute. When you write up a petition for police officers to stop swearing in public, I'll sign it. But as far as me swearing, swear words are American as apple pie. So one of the things I represent is freedom. Not I don't, and me personally, like I said, I want to lead by example. I don't want to be a douchebag, but at the same time, don't try to limit my speech. You know, what about writing up the petition for the cops when you hear them all the time swearing and get on the effing ground? And, you know, it's like that is more unprofessional than you could possibly imagine. People ignore all that. Oh, they're cops, you know, they're just, well, what would you do if you were in that position? I mean, what would you do if you were in my position talking to this cop who basically told me get a life? Well, he gets out of the car. We walk side by side. He's on the other side of the fence. I'm on this side of the fence. And we're practically talking crap to each other. And then he said something about your mom. And my mom had already passed away. So I was like, no way, dude. So I cussed him out some more. Well, this officer in Bakersfield who pretty much hates me and doxes me every time he sees me and starts saying my address all loud and stuff for the camera. Well, I guess he's watching my channel religiously, right? I don't know if he's watching it on duty or off duty, but he sees that video and he knows the guy. So he calls them and he's like, do you want to press charges? The guy's like, yeah. So they press charges against me. Next thing you know, I have a warrant. One of the things I do before I go out every day is I ask my wife, make sure I ain't got no warrants. So she checked for me. But come to find out I had a warrant. Dude, I went auditing and cop watching everywhere in California but Bakersfield when I had a warrant. I didn't care. I was like, I'm going out. But it's funny because a lot of my videos, I'm not going to lie, I was scared. I'm like, damn, I got a warrant. I hope they don't run me. But, yeah, man, I ended up fighting that charge and I beat it because what they did is they solicited a charge on me of offensive language in public. And that's another one of the ones that police use a lot, you know.
Right.
Disturbing the peace, offensive language in public. They try to threaten us with that. But yeah, I beat that charge, bro. It felt really good to do it.
Yeah, man. Glad to hear that. And, you know, it's ironic that he told you to get a life because last time I checked, you're the one who's actually making a living through voluntary exchange, and he's the one being paid through stolen tax dollars, you know? So he's the welfare whore here. And
yeah, you know what's amazing?
Fact that
you know what's amazing that you say that about welfare is, do you know that police officers actually get the exact same paycheck as a welfare recipient? It's stamped the same, it's sent the same. They are welfare recipients, whether they like it or not.
That's interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, it all comes from the same place, so it's not much of a surprise. But David, man, it's been great chatting with you. I know we're getting close to the hour mark here. Just a couple last questions for you. What is Penal Code 148 subsection G, and why is it so important that all cop watchers and auditors in California know about that penal code?
It basically stipulates that we're allowed to record in public. They're not allowed to hinder our freedom of speech, our right to record. And it's bottom line simple. They try to use the 148 subsection yada yada to say that we're disturbing the peace, but it like we tell the cops, the same laws that hold us accountable hold you accountable as well. So, and that's why we spit that at them, the 148.G. There's another one, SB 1421 in California, that allows us to get records from police that, you know, they've been hiding. And here in Kern County, Channel 17 News, once SB 1421 passed, Channel 17 News just did like they picked like 5 random police officers, and they did a SB 1421 on one of them and found out that this officer had arrested, I guess, a girl's boyfriend on a spousal abuse charge. And I guess this happens a lot, man. People don't know this shit, but he just started like talking to her behind the scenes, and he was using his personal phone to send her screenshots of his genitals. So, hey, And then later on, she was like, "Nah, I don't think I want to hook up with you, man. Maybe he wasn't carrying what she wanted." But
It's probably those screenshots didn't provide enough or something.
yeah, she turned it into some other officers later on, some women officers that went to do a follow up. She basically showed them the screenshots, and they wrote it on a report and they sent it in. Nothing happened, but later on the news picked it up when that new law came out, and they're like, "This is what we found," and this is just one officer. So
wow.
yeah, man, we should be doing all these records requests and we need to look. We're in its infancy in First Amendment auditing. We have not even begun to scratch the surface of what we can do as a society to change things, to hold public officials accountable. We're in its infancy. Let's see where it goes from here. I turned down a Netflix documentary. I didn't really like the way the guy was telling me, like, yeah, I want to record you in slow motion making your coffee. And I was like, nah, man, this is not even really about me, bro. Like, I don't even want to be famous. This is about the people. I'm only one of the people, bro. I represent the people. And I think we all need to kind of have that mentality and see where we go from here, man.
Yeah,
Hell
you're
yeah,
right,
well
man.
said.
Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
Oh no, I just was saying, well said. Hell yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the stories are endless. I mean, for, the past, Jesus, what has it been now, Matt? 8 years, we've been doing this. We used to cover 6 stories a day. And, majority of those were police accountability stories. We're doing 3 a day now. And, we still can't keep up. I mean, there's so many. And yeah, incidents, even within your local department, there's probably a plethora of, and they seem to never be ending. I mean, there's one thing, these officers, law enforcement officers, they know how to abuse their authority every opportunity they get. And they'll invent new ways to figure out how to abuse their authority, So yeah, it is an endless job. It's a thankless job as well. It's pretty rare that you get to have these kind of conversations with fellow cop watchers and give each other a little bit of appreciation, because a lot of people just tune out that whole side of reality. They don't want to know about everything that's going on. They want to believe, they want to be NPCs, and yeah, police are on our side. Like, police are the good people. But with that said, dude, is there any suggestions, recommendations, tips, rules that you could give First Amendment auditors or cop watchers who are interested in starting to film the police and keep them accountable?
Yes. First and foremost, we work stronger as individuals. I've been offered so many associations, sign on with this, sign on with that. But look, man, we really don't need to. As individuals, we have a common goal, a mindset of freedom, of the First Amendment. And I've been cussed out because I didn't want to join someone else's cockamamie association, and I've been shunned for the same reasons. But look, man, from sea to shining sea, people are picking up cameras and recording police and public officials and holding them accountable. We don't need an association. We just need, to be operating as individuals. We're stronger that way. We are big. We are the government. We are the people. You know what I mean? We need to really understand what's going on and teach our friends and family, whether they like it or not, whether they understand it or not. Look, my oldest son, he was in the Marines when I started my channel. Absolutely did not understand what I was doing, did not even care to watch my videos or nothing. Now he's out of the Marines. We've talked a lot. He's needed a job, so I've actually paid him to drive me to go cop watch and audit places. While on the road, talking and talking and talking, he finally understands that I'm not a cop hater. This isn't about an anti-police channel. When I get comments like, so this is just another anti-cop channel, and I'm like, no, bro, we're not anti-police, but you got to understand something here. We don't love police here blindly either. We try to find some resolution to what's going on. So why don't you stick around, and hopefully we can educate each other, because I want to learn from you as well. There was a retired fish and game warden who watched a video of a positive interaction of another fish and game warden, and I mentioned that, look, guys, on my channel, I want to highlight the good and the bad. So here's a video of a fishing game warden who acted professional, yada, yada. This guy seen it. He had already written some other books, and he was like, I'm writing a book. So there's already been a book. He says it was inspired by me because I was not like showing that I was a cop hater and that auditing channels are just like, cops. So he started to really pay attention. He went back and looked at a lot of audits that were done, arrests that were made, and he wrote a book. And let me show you guys what book it is. The book is called Rise of the Oathbreakers. First book written by for First Amendment auditors, and it has a lot of arrests in there. It has a lot of channels that, for instance, I don't get along with anymore. Why do I promote the book? I have no financial interest in the book, so there shouldn't be no question as to the validity of it or the importance of what you'll find in it. I believe that if mothers bought their teenage sons this book, it could ultimately save them a lot of grief when they're out in the streets and they're getting accosted by a police officer or whatnot. Look, man, I never wanted to be famous. I turned down that Netflix documentary. I feel like whoever becomes famous, we'll all follow. We'll follow behind because, like I said, there's a lot of channels that do this for the good reasons, and people are starting to recognize and understand who those channels are, and those channels are starting to take off. Hundreds, thousands of subscribers, millions of views. It's amazing. Another piece of advice when you're out there recording cops is look at the police through your phone. Don't look at them in their eyes. Look at them through the phone. This solves two things. First, you're not going to get the accidental crotch cam, right? You're not going to be looking at him and recording his crotch on accident, right? Accidentally. No, you're going to, and that solves that, right? You're going to get actually his face and stuff. But it's also going to let the officer know that he's not just talking to you. He's talking to the people that are going to be watching this video. And I think that has kept me safe from arrest a lot. I've given up the secret so many times. Who picks it up? I don't know. Who discards it as useless information is beyond me. But, simple things, man. Look, we're activists, journalists, right? I'm a journalist. But we're also YouTubers now. I'm a YouTuber. So we also got to learn the ropes of YouTubing. Learn how it's done. Learn how to be a good YouTuber. Always improve. Not just your knowledge of in the streets, but how to edit videos. And look at what I'm doing. I'm doing a podcast, man. I ain't never done this kind of stuff before. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trying my best.
Sure. No, man.
Anybody can reach out to me, Jason. Anybody can reach out to me. I'll do my best to help,
Yes.
bro. You already know that.
No, brother, that's such an important, I started this the same boat, man. I'm not anybody special. Matt's pretty special, but I'm not special at either, just special. But no, it really is important to point that out, man, because we're just people who are concerned and feel like we need to do something to step up to the plate and try to make things better rather than worse. And I'm really appreciative too that you really try to stay focused on keeping it neutral, because the polarization in this country is at an all-time high, and what that does is instantly turn people off from new perspectives and new ideas. If we can frame things without that polarization, people are much more likely to at least entertain the ideas that you're putting out there. And so even though we might not agree with police, even though we might have had some negative experiences with them, they're still ultimately humans, and their minds can change. Not often, but it can happen, So yes, it's important to always keep that humanity and, look at this stuff as, we're just trying to bring some progress and positive change to the world. And with that being said, unless there's anything else you have, Matt, I think we should try to wrap this up. Maybe you can share, David, where people could find you. All your social media accounts. For us, we're on Police the Police is pretty much on every social media channel you could think of. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Minds, MeWe, Telegram. So please reach out to us. We also just partnered up with Legal Shield, which is basically an app for 24/7 lawyer advice, recommendations. There's a bunch of different services that they provide as being lawyers as well. I just did my will recently through them. So come to thefreethoughtproject.com and sign up. What is it, Matt? Is it like $24 a month or something like that?
Yeah, it's $25 a month. You get all these different editions like trial defense, and there's like a Second Amendment package that helps you, defend yourself. Gives you an attorney for any type of gun situation you might be in.
So it is actually very beneficial, and it's nice just to have that on standby. You could actually get in contact with a lawyer within 4 to 6 hours. So, it's much cheaper than any other type of lawyer, attorney services or whatever. But that's enough of our pitch. If you want to go ahead and share with our listeners where they could find you, David.
Okay, so my main channel is San Joaquin Valley Transparency on YouTube. I am branching out to Instagram and Facebook as well. I have a second channel called San Joaquin News Network that sort of blew up because my main channel was taken down for a while, but it came back. So I got San Joaquin Valley Transparency, San Joaquin News Network. I just started a channel called San Joaquin Podcast. But I also have my youngest son who's been cop watching with me since he was 14 years old. He's 17 years old now. His channel on YouTube is called Nate Skates 182. My oldest son, who was a Marine when I first started, who didn't really care too much about my work, he now has a channel called San Joaquin Jr. He's done some cop watching with me, and he also shares videos as well. And my other son, who is in school, absolutely did not want to even hear about what I was talking about or doing. Did not care. He was just being a kid, fresh out of college and just enjoying life. In college, enjoying life. And little by little, he was driving me around as well and understanding what I do. So now he has a channel as well called San Joaquin Audits. None of this was planned out, bro. None of this I never expected to get big numbers. I just went out, decided to pick up a camera, record police, and where it went from there, here we are today. I understand a lot more than I did when I first started, and I want to stay the route. I want to not fall off and just become beside myself and forget about what I really wanted to do. And like I said, man, actually I've told you this before, but I've noticed your work way back when. Your work also is part of the reason why I'm here. It did wake me up, and I also was asleep in the past. I did believe that cops were here to protect us, and in reality, case law states that they're not here. One more thing before I go. There's 3 policies that I always like to, that I believe that we should look at, in general. One of those policies is internal investigations, right? Internal affairs, they basically investigate themselves. It's like my kid punching the neighbor's kid comes over and is like, hold on, wait here, let me go talk to my son. I come back and my son was like, he was staring at me in a threatening manner. Pa, I thought he was going to hit me. So I come back and say, I'm sorry, we did an internal investigations. Have a nice day. That's internal investigations. Qualified immunity, you would think that qualified immunity would have been spoken about during this whole George Floyd incident, right? It was enacted a couple years after the Jim Crow laws were repealed. Why nobody's looking at that, trying to repeal qualified immunity and absolute immunity for judges, district attorneys, who knowingly will prosecute somebody knowing that their rights were violated. We need to absolve absolute immunity, qualified immunity. And the third policy, I believe, is police unions. Now, police officers will not agree with any of these policies, but this whole defund the police madness, I believe that it doesn't really work somehow. I mean, no, we can't keep throwing money at a problem, right? But hey, if we're gonna keep paying them, we're gonna keep throwing money at these guys. Let's start taking away these things. Let's create some heroes out there, because, like I say in my videos, police officer safety is not heroism. Public safety is. So, and with that,
boom,
I'm out.
Yeah. No, that's a great phrase to close on, and I think you're spot on with that. And as we touched on earlier, if only they'd uphold their oath and remember, who they're supposed to be working for, I think things would be drastically different in this country. And hey, they might even have respect again, But yeah, unless there's anything else you want to say, Matt, I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up. But it's been a pleasure talking with you, man. I think our audience is going to glean a lot of use and information from this. And it's great having an auditor, cop watcher on here. I think, people are going to get a lot of tips and understand that world much better. So thank you for being on, brother.
You're very welcome, man. If your viewers have any questions for me, bro, ask me. We can do this again. Write the questions down and ask me, and I'll reply.
Boom. Yep. Sounds great. All right, fellas. Well, we'll talk again soon. Enjoy the day.
Matt, Jason, thank you guys, man, for having me
Good to
on.
meet you, David. Thanks for doing what you do, man.
Thank you, brother. You're welcome.
All right, dude.
Guys. Have a good one.
Peace.